Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. Tonight, we are going to be talking about Furiosa, the fifth installment in the Mad Max series. This is one that's been expected for a while. Again, for people that don't know the Mad Max series, they did Mad Max 1, 2, 3 in the 80s and 90s, and then Mel Gibson decided to say questionable things in a taxi cab, um, and then got himself canceled for about 10, 15 years. So George Miller had to sort of rework his idea and then got Tom Hardy to play it in Mad Max Fury Road. But now we're back. This gets prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. So this is Furiosa's upbringing, her own story, whereas most of the movies have just followed Mad Max, obviously. This one is Furiosa's story. Um, and despite the fact that she says 30 lines of dialogue, I believe they said, it's quite a story. Um, George Miller is one of those guys that I really appreciate because he does the thing that I think a lot of people forget, which is this is a movie. It's not a book, and you don't need dialogue all the time. And he shows why that's capable. And if not just capable, it's very artistic. I mean, you get a lot more, I think, in the Mad Max series, especially from the moments in between than the moments of dialogue. But for those, I don't know. I think, Max, you've watched some of the Mad Max series
I
before
got
this.
through about an hour and 10 minutes of the original Mad Max movie and realized I would not have time. I just didn't finish it. So I skipped to Fury
That's fine.
Road.
I
Um,
think this
just
movie really only requires, if
but
any, Mad Max Fury Road. I think it
yeah,
works fine as a standalone.
yeah.
And then George, I know you watched the first Mad Max, and then you sort of
I watched the OG a couple weeks ago, and then I watched Fury Road Monday night, and then saw Furiosa Tuesday.
nice. Well,
Did
then,
my
for
homework
two,
mostly.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that I love about this movie is that it works on its own. I always do all the Mad Max movies, um, but this one especially. Like Fury Road works really well with it, but it's not a necessity. You get all of the story beats and necessary like character development in this movie.
Yeah, there are certain Easter eggs in this film that hint at things that we know are to come in Fury Road.
Hmm.
Um, Immortan Joe is a huge part of that. The Citadel and the idea of the war rig, especially the war rig that we see at the very end of the film, knowing that that's what Furiosa sort of drives. That's her rig at the beginning of Fury Road. So there are certain moments in this film that, if you've seen Fury Road, uh, are nicely they make them nice compliments for each other. But yeah, you're absolutely right. This film, if you hadn't seen any of the movies, you could watch this one and then Fury Road, and it would work just as well.
Which is also how I felt about any of the Mad Maxes. They all work pretty well as just like a pick 'em up, enjoy whatever story this is. Like and I think it's much more of an exploration of like the world rather than just a character, um, arc and things like that. Uh, Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um, but yeah, Max, what did you think since you haven't spoken yet?
I thought it was pretty good. I think Ben, you brought up the world building, and just like the environment that they're in. I think that's just what Australia looks like. So I think
Yeah,
I think it's pretty much exactly what you would expect, I guess, of wasteland Australia.
I love that George Miller's like, yeah, this is what the apocalypse looks like, and everybody else is just like, that's just Australia.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I think just having seen part of the original, the first film in Mad Max, you definitely get a sense of like how this wasteland and apocalypse has progressed through each of the movies. Even in Furiosa and Fury Road, it still feels like there's some time in between them. I'm not sure how much. I'm just guessing that there is. Unless the wives at the end were supposed to be the ones that she had in Fury Road, or was it
Yeah,
just to be like
as I understand it, like the Valkyries or whatever she had in Fury Road, those are the wives, the concubines that she rescued in this movie. That's what it
Okay,
made it seem like.
yeah,
Yeah, and we
because
didn't see
maybe it could have been,
Furiosa's face in that last scene. We didn't see Anya
yeah,
Taylor-Joy or Charlize Theron.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that
I
that
think it
was
was
the
the beginning of Fury Road.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so too. But I mean, I also can see it being the other case too, where it's like, oh yeah, she just has a pattern of doing this and freeing these women and everything, and that it
I
leads
don't think
into
Immortan Joe would keep her around.
like,
I think yeah, I think this is much more of a personal story, so it would be kind of weird for that just to be a random thing. So
mhm,
I think we're meant to assume that.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, an interesting movie because we've done a lot of movies on the pod where we have a lot to talk about. This is much more of an experiential thing where you sort of just watch it, you see things progress. Um, there's not necessarily a ton of dialogue, even aside from Anya Taylor-Joy not speaking very much. There's not a lot of dialogue.
Dude,
John,
Hemsworth is talking the whole time. He doesn't shut up.
well, he's talking every time he's on the screen, yes,
Right.
but he's also
But yeah,
just
I
saying
noticed,
things. Like that's not like a plot thing. That's just him saying like, "Oh, come get me," like very bravado. Um, yeah, I mean, I thought he was great. It was a really cool villain, especially
he's being
the parts where
douchebag Thor.
I don't know, he's more of like an interesting character, I think. Um,
I don't know,
he's
I was
got
talking about
those elements of like he's trying to protect. Uh, what does she say her name was?
Little D,
Huh?
Little
Oh
D.
yeah,
little D.
little B, or little D. God, I should have named myself Little B.
I think Place of Green works.
Place of Green does work. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like a protective thing. There are a lot of intricacies to his character, I feel like. I mean, yes, he can be just the really bare bones, psychopath, murderer, torturer, but he does have like an element of, oh, he kind of lost himself after his daughters died. At least that's kind of what the movie alludes to, especially the fact that when we first see him, he's carrying a teddy bear on his robe or whatever. The costumes in this and all the Mad Maxes are great, but yeah,
Mhm.
I think he's an interesting villain. He's not just a psycho. As same with Immortan Joe. They're like they have an idea, and they're not just like straight evil. They have a
There's
controlling
nuance.
idea, huh?
There's nuance and depth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
like,
got a lot of
kind of,
that from Immortan Joe in Fury Road. And then here he's presented. First of all, he takes a step back in this film because
Mhm.
this is really more about Furiosa and Dementis, not so
We
much
see
about
more of
Joe.
Rectus and Scrotus than him.
Yeah. Um, and we're all children here.
what does he call them? Abominations or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like,
did you see the child born in the movie? It was
yeah,
two
There's
combined,
two that are one.
yeah.
and
Um,
are actually none because it was dead when it came.
but yeah, Joe is very much, I wouldn't say a bad guy here. Certainly not in the way that he is a
Everything's
villainous
relative. He's
presence.
definitely a bad guy. It's
Right.
just
But he's not relative to Furiosa compared with Dementis. he's more, shall we say, morally ambiguous.
Yeah.
Because
Also, I
he's
Whereas
really
not the
love.
target
Mel,
of her rage. Like,
yeah,
she's focused on what she wants to do.
Yeah, again, this guy tortured and killed her
Yeah.
mother. So even though, he sort of raised her and stuff, she's very vengeful. Um, I mean, I think it's a pretty cut and dry story wise. It's kind of hard to talk about. It really is. Because I feel like it's a lot of style, Um,
yeah, and
this is
let's
much more of a straightforward plot and much more interesting, like, experience to watch it happen. It's not an easy like blockbuster, like, oh, you get knocked down a peg and then you come back stronger than ever and then just beat them. Like she loses an arm, I guess that's that moment, but
but we know that's coming from Jump Street. We know that, oh,
yeah,
she has the arm at the beginning of the movie. She doesn't
yeah,
have
it's
the
like
arm in Fury Road.
obviously we're gonna find out how she got that arm. Um, and at the same time, I love that ending. Um, it feels very personal, but also very you sort of see what kind of like person Dementis really is. It's like completely void of anything, just doing all of this to feel something. And I guess when she was a child, little D kind of, represented something for him to protect, which you even see when he tries to attack Morton Joe that first time. And she's being like taken by the people and he like fights them back off, protects her. It's an interesting villain. And I feel like one of the things that Mad Max really specializes is showing what people can become when you take certain parts of what would be their normal life before the apocalypse, before, the world was turned into a wasteland, what they can become. And you get the
Yeah,
feeling
the
that
rest of the
Kristen,
world is normal. Australia just decided to do that on its own.
that's true. It's just us true. But I mean, you see what I mean? Like, you get the sense that he could be a normal dad and is just rage filled because of what happened.
He's rage
Uh,
filled and he has all of these resources at his disposal.
mhm.
If he were just a guy who lost his family, he doesn't have the breadth of impact on the wasteland as he does with hordes and hundreds and thousands of bikers and savages and warriors at his beck and call.
But you could see he's also aimless too. He's just like he's lashing out all the time, but he's got no organization. Everybody's always fighting. Like he has no plan.
Yes
He's
and no, because
rage filled.
he's driven to control the wasteland, right? He wants to go for the green place initially, but that sort of fizzles when he kills Furiosa's mother, and then Furiosa takes the silent vow of silence. And then he's like, all right, we're going to go for the Citadel. That doesn't work. All right, we're going to take Gastown. They take Gastown. We're going to take the Bullet Farm. They take the Bullet Farm. Now we have the ability to go take the Citadel up. We left ourselves unprotected. We lost. So he's got the drive to take over the wasteland. He just doesn't really have the plan for it. Or he doesn't
Yeah.
execute a solid enough plan despite taking the two other biggest sort of compounds out there.
But yeah, I
And
mean,
by
I
the
feel
way,
like
talk about world building. I feel like I could look at a map and tell you exactly where the Citadel, the Green Place, all of the Fury Road, Gastown, and the Bullet Farm are in relation to each other.
yeah, I think it does
That's how
it does a good
brilliantly
job.
George Miller lays this out.
What do you think, Max?
About what?
Anything to add?
No, I mean, I
Yeah.
agree. Like it's super easy to follow. But I think he's stripped away a lot of the complexities of it and made it so that we're like always right within the world. We're never taken out of it. There's no distractions. It's always very focused on the road and what resources need to pass along it, which ones get taken. And then obviously the fortresses are kind of just there as like I guess the biggest chess pieces, but um you know, it is very easy to follow.
Um, I think instead of just talking about the film, we should talk about the fact that there aren't many films that actually utilize the medium to this extent anymore. And one of the films that I showed you guys was Blade Runner, um, which to me has always been somewhat similar to George Miller.
Max wasn't on that episode.
It's true, I wasn't.
It's true. Um, but the idea is like the experience of film. It is film, it's visual, right? It's not just audio. And I feel like a lot of times people use the visual as a extension of their plot, their story, their audio. When in reality, you can do a lot with just the visual component. I mean, half of this movie is probably just the visuals, the experience, the seeing the action, feeling, you know, the different effects, the sound effects, the soundtrack, the minimal soundtrack. Um,
But what's there is great.
but what's there is great. And the sound is always really good in George Miller movies. You really feel like you're there. Um, that's one
Oh,
of the things that I think.
speaking of that, um, I saw this in Cinemark XD with D-Box seats, which I've only done for Dune and I think Fall Guy and maybe Wakanda Forever. And every time one of those bikes revved on or one of those war rigs was rumbling down the road, my
Mhm.
seat was moving and the screen was larger than life. It was awesome. I was in the world.
I feel like that's an experience for some people, maybe not everyone. I don't think
Fair
I could
enough.
enjoy that.
I don't know. It was
But
really cool.
nonetheless, however you experience it, it is an experience. And it's like a roller coaster. It really is. It's just sort of you're there for the ride. You can think about some of the stuff, but it is a simple plot, just executed really well, which I think works great. I mean, some of the best storylines are very simple. Again, Blade Runner, it's just about a bunch of replicants coming back and looking to survive. But it's the experience, it's the world building, you know, exploring a different world, I guess.
Yeah, and the
And
idea,
that's
Ben,
what
that you
movies
bring up,
should be in in some way. I think sometimes we get too stuck in just telling a story when we could be part of a story. Um, but yeah, I'm glad George Miller's getting the attention he deserves again. He was big in the 80s, 90s, but he was not big since Fury Road.
yeah, and I
I
think
guess he's not
what
getting the attention
this,
because go see this movie. The box office, it's not doing well.
well, we can talk about the box office in a minute, but I just want to say that the idea of show don't tell is, I agree, kind of a lost art form in film, especially when it comes to major blockbusters like this one. And compare this with Fury Road. I noticed when I was watching Fury Road the other night that Max, Mad Max, doesn't say a whole lot.
Yeah.
He might even have fewer lines in that than Furiosa has in her own movie. Like Tom Hardy says nothing.
Yep. Well, I feel like that's the originals as well. I mean, Max is always meant to be like a
I don't know. Mel Gibson says a
somewhat,
lot in the first one.
I guess, yeah. Maybe the Road Warrior, I feel like, is a little quieter. Um, but yeah, regardless, I feel like it works really well for a movie like this. You don't need a complicated plot. In fact, it doesn't make any sense. You're in a wasteland. The most simplistic plot is the hardest to accomplish. Just get water, bring it over here. You know that's very hard in the wasteland. Um, and I think it's the genius of George Miller that writes the story like this and also makes a world like this. And you also have to be part of, you know, from Australia, to actually think of something like this because there's no other place on the planet Earth where you could ever envision this.
No, you don't see this happening in the Berkshires.
Maybe maybe if it's like Blade Runner 2049 and it's just become completely irradiated, but yeah, maybe not.
No, you couldn't see this in San Diego, California?
Mainly the desert. It's mainly the desert. I guess San Diego has some desert, but
No, I mean, just visually speaking, these films are stunning, right? I think the presentation, and I'm kicking myself that I never saw Fury Road on the big screen. I saw it for the first time on my tablet right in front of my
oh my
face.
God. Can you
And
watch it
it took
again?
something away from me.
I know it
And
did.
and I would love to see it on a big screen. Next year's the 10-year anniversary. Maybe they'll do a re-release. I would go see it. Um, but Furiosa, seeing it on the big screen, and say what you will about the D-box seats, I felt like it would bring me deeper into the world. It did. I enjoyed the experience.
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying I couldn't do it. But
Yeah, no,
if you feel
no
like it's
disrespect
going to
taken.
enhance the experience, go for it.
Yeah, and certain films it works. Like Dune Part 2, experiencing the rumble of the sandworms in those seats was electric. Wakanda Forever, yeah, I did it because those are the only open seats for that opening night showing. So, but for this film, it really, really worked. And just the idea of this visual world, again, right, we're talking about the visuals separate from the audio and the narrative, using what you see to tell your story necessitates, in a manner of speaking, as large a screen as possible. Because when there are so many different visual components to pick up on, and such a breadth of, what's the word I'm looking for? With
Scale?
so much to see, I'm going to simplify it. With so much to see, you want to be able to pick up on everything. And me holding my tablet, not this close to my face, but this close to my face, it took something away from Fury Road. But for Furiosa, seeing the gigantic
Don't
screen was
don't
awesome.
watch anything on tablets. That's that's a pretty good lesson.
It's convenient.
Yep. And Christopher Nolan will smite you.
I'm not gonna watch fucking Oppenheimer on my tablet or Interstellar.
Oh, that's fine. You'll just watch Fury Road. Okay. Cool.
Okay, was I
Let
gonna
me let me message George Miller real quick.
was I gonna rent out a theater for myself to watch Fury Road?
Yes. Do it. Pussy. Don't you have a TV or something?
I do, yeah.
What do you mean you gotta rent it? Just put it on the TV. Don't put it on your laptop.
I mean, there's not that big a difference between doesn't matter. Um,
Did you all heard that, right? Our
yes,
viewers?
yes, they all heard that.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you do have a point. The bigger the screen, the better it is, and also the fidelity of the screen. You can't like a really terrible old big screen is not going to do it justice. You gotta have the fidelity to see everything. But yeah, I mean it's a great movie. I don't know. There's not that much we can really talk about. It's not one of those movies where we can just say, "Wow, that was great," and this was great. You sort of just feel like you're getting on, and then you're just along for the ride.
I want to bring up one concern that I have with the film and why I didn't enjoy it more. It's
Okay.
the issue that I take with a lot of prequels, and I don't know when the last time we did a prequel was, but there are no stakes. You
I feel like
know,
there are stakes
you know
for
Furiosa is going to make it to the end of the movie. You know, Immortan Joe is going to make it to the end of the
yeah,
movie. We know
but
exactly where
George,
this story is going to leave off the whole time.
but you don't know what's going to happen.
You
You
don't
don't
know
know
how
the
you're going to get there.
beats.
I know, and
Yeah.
I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I
It's
enjoyed the
about
film.
the adventure, not the destination. That's what they say.
Joys in the journey.
Yeah, the joy is in the journey. It's like, yes, we do, but also whenever I watch Mad Max films, I'm like, yeah, obviously Mad Max is gonna survive. You don't need a sequel or anything to tell you that. But it's still great and it's still very enjoyable. I feel like they're vehicles, you know, you sort of look at the world and you're like, oh, this is the type of person that can survive out here, but also cannot lose themselves.
I liked the presentation of the uh the war boys in this one, and how that, like, that one scene where they demonstrate how willing they are to die for literally nothing.
Yeah,
It shows
just put on the spray.
perhaps
Spray is great.
even more than what we get with like Nux and everything that he does in Fury Road. Perhaps even more, shows even more, what kind of hold Joe has on all these guys.
I don't think it's the hold he has as much as the spray. They love that spray. Every time
All
I
right,
see that
but
spray,
Ben,
I
I
just think
texted
of
I texted you when I was watching Fury Road saying I'm awaited in Valhalla, and you left me on red. So fuck you.
oh, sorry, you texted me that during dinner or something. I was busy.
It was 11 o'clock at night.
I was I was busy. Um,
What is the spray? It's like,
I have no idea. When
Silver spray paint.
yeah,
it makes you like psychotic and also I assume filled with dopamine or something.
it
But every time
might just be spray paint and it fucks them up.
it's definitely not spray
They're
paint.
Oh,
high on fumes.
Every time I see that stuff though, I think of like especially in soccer, you see different athletes whenever they have an issue like oh their leg got hurt or something, they put on this magical spray that I guess just makes something better. And then they're out on the field again in like a minute.
like the
That's what I
number
think it is.
It's like in every movie ever when jab the adrenaline into the guy's heart and can suddenly be perfectly fine.
Well, that's adrenaline. He's not fine, but he's on adrenaline. But I assume it's some like
Whatever.
I don't know super drug that also
makes you like kind of suicidal.
yeah. It seems like that they're
Is it
just raised to die.
suicidal, or like I will be, rewarded for my lack,
Uninhibited.
yeah, on my uninhibited approach
Yeah,
to every action I
uninhibited.
take.
I think because whenever they die, they're like, see you in Valhalla, or one of those guys was like, watch this, and then blew himself up.
That was
They're
such a
like
great moment in Fury
YouTubers,
Road, though.
uninhibited YouTubers. That's what they are in the wasteland. They found all the YouTubers. They made them into war boys. That means you and all of us, we're going to become war boys in the apocalypse. But yeah, they just got them, and then they get some special spray,
Valhalla is diamonds is
and they're
diamond.
going they're going for the clip for the vine or whatever you say these days for the reel.
Ben, for Top Gun Maverick, I shaved into just a mustache. I'm disappointed you didn't shave your head and dye your skin gray for this
Oh
episode.
my god! I think yeah, I think I would become a war boy at that point. I would find the nearest intersection.
I think I would simply like operate a wasteland deli or something. Like I wouldn't be involved in all the shenanigans with everyone else. I'd just be my own guy.
You'd have the wasteland deli. You'd serve
Wasteland
piss.
Valley of Roach Gruel or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
roach gruel, piss as a drink, and human
Hey,
blood sausage.
if it
Mhm.
sells,
Well, yeah, of course it'll sell. Everyone's starving out there.
right, and that is how you capitalize on your market.
Just gonna have like a little shack out in the middle of the wasteland.
Yeah, on the road between the Bullet Farm and
Extra
Gastown.
sausages.
What do you guys think of the tree growing out of Dementis at the end?
The
That
whole-
was pretty nuts.
that was wild, yes. The ending for a franchise that's built around its action, I'm sorry, but the climax was disappointing. Like
It's
it's
not built around its action, it's built around its symbolism. And again, they say what does her mom say? Plant this where something will grow like big or something, grow healthy. I don't know.
Something
She
like
had some really nice line, and then he planted in Dementus in a place that it will grow well. It looked very healthy to me,
Yeah.
and it had a person in it.
Did the tree have a person in it, or did the person have a tree in him?
the person had a tree in him.
I guess the person had a tree in him.
Going
Yeah,
with that one.
probably more accurate.
I
Mhm.
wish that the Dementus that we saw at the end there looked more like Hemsworth, because it just looked like a
Oh,
random old guy.
relax,
But just
relax.
first of all, you're gonna put a fake nose on Chris Hemsworth for the whole movie? Come on.
Why not? Like I kind
Because
of
we
liked it.
know it's Chris Hemsworth. You don't have to do that to him.
It's not about that. It's about making him look a little goofy.
I mean, he did look goofy with the cape and the cloak and the red hair and
Yeah,
It's
but the
it's
nose really sells
the
it.
combination. Yeah, the nose sells it.
I don't know.
It's gotta be ridiculous. Like,
I thought it was a little goofy.
George, they named two characters Scrotus and Rectus. You have no claim here.
They have a character named Piss Boy, and this man is like, I thought the nose was a little goofy.
No, the whole thing is ridiculous. And you know what? You go along with it because
He's
that's the
carrying a
world that they
teddy
built.
bear everywhere he
Yeah,
goes.
I'm saying it's all ridiculous.
Okay, all right.
But you just have to go along with it because that's the world that they built and it works.
To be honest, I actually think that's how it would turn out. Like,
An
very
apocalypse.
ridiculous, psychopathic people would run the world. Because why not?
Well, they're the ones that are gonna have the balls to go step up and take it. Like he said in the movie.
Exactly. They're going to be
They're
so
the ones that are
psychotic.
gonna go do it. Even if they don't
Yeah.
have a plan, they're gonna go do it. And
Case in
people are
point,
gonna follow.
Dementus.
People are gonna follow.
Yeah, he's just like, let's go do this. And he's got like 10 million bikers around him. They're like, yeah, let's do it. All right. I think we've probably talked about this movie enough. This is an experience. You have to go
See
watch
it
it.
on the
You
biggest
have to
screen possible.
experience it. You
Yeah.
have to see it in the theaters, support it because otherwise these movies will never be made again. We'll be stuck with what will be stuck with? Jurassic World Dominion? Something like that.
Locusts.
Locusts. Um,
And you don't
yeah, go
want
see the
Ben to be
movie.
complaining on every episode about the locusts.
I
I
think
know
we all
Max and I
enjoyed it.
don't.
I think we would all recommend it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go see it. What do we have next week? What are we reviewing?
I don't remember. We're gonna surprise you guys next week.
All right, well,
Surprise
we'll
ourselves.
surprise everybody.
Cool.
Great. I feel
Alrighty.
good about this. This was great. Good job hosting, Ben.
Yeah, this is great.
Good job, Ben.
I did a great job.
All right.
Good
Good
job, B. Had too much beer at the theater.
Okay, that's enough. Good night, everybody.
night.
All right, good night.